So I think that what this speaks about is an environment, today's environment, with so many sources of information from so many different places, from podcasts, the internet, to all the news issues, is there's so much noise out there. And these talking points become heavily marketed, heavily researched, and then tested and become main pushing points. And it's mainly just to break through the noise. Meanwhile, people, as you said earlier, we're so busy trying to care about our kids or get a job or keep a job or worry about our health issues, whatever the case may be. This stuff has to break through every once in a while and stick.
Welcome to Third Side Convo with your host, Bob Phipps. Your panelists today are Donald Thomas, Ted Johnson, Staysha Boyd, and Michelle Walters. And now, your host, Bob Phipps.
All right, welcome to Third Side Convo, the show where we actually try to think before we speak, unlike most of the internet. All right. Today we are tackling talking points, the political junk food of our time. You know the ones. The Republicans are gas was under $2 under the conservatives, and the Democrats are inflation is just corporate greed. The reality is it's not that simple. Talking points are crafted to trigger emotions, not deliver facts. They stick because they're quick, dramatic, and easy to repeat. They feed into whatever you already believe, reinforcing tribalism over truth. And let's be honest, they drive us all nuts. Why do they work? Because people are busy. You know, most Americans can't fact check every claim. They're working, they're raising kids, trying not to lose their minds. So when someone yells, inflation is destroying America, it lands because people actually see higher prices. Meanwhile, a vague feel-good line like, we just want fairness for all, falls flat. Because what does that even mean? So today, we're going to call BS on both sides. We're going to try to expose the spin. We're going to ask why certain messages stick, and we're going to challenge ourselves. Can we admit when our own side is guilty? So we're not going to, we got timers going, but there's going to be no scorekeeping, just real conversation. So let's hear it. And let's go around the group just a little bit. If y'all thought about this, what's the worst talking point you like? Now, bonus points if it's from your own ideological side. All right, Ted, let's hear from you first. Give us a good talking point. And I know you wanted to kind of give us a bad one from your left side. So what do you think is one of the bogus talking points that you hear from the liberals all the time?
Well, I think there's something abstract and unconcrete of saying something, we want peace and harmony or justice for all. And those are really nice ideals, but really rather unrealistic in today's society. We're always having judgmental issues, and some are better than others. It goes both ways. I think a lot of talking points are meant to just break through the noise in the background.
Okay, so Michelle, are we assuming that you're all for peace and harmony and stuff like that, so you'd agree with Ted that that's maybe a bogus one? What's your favorite talking point that you'd like to mention today?
Overall, I love the whole kumbaya, and I think that, and in theory, it sounds great, but practicality is a completely different thing. One of the ones that really stood out for me that a couple of the points that I get tired of listening to in the news is the election was rigged. That was one of the big ones. Another one was, named crime is only in the Democratic states. You know what I mean? The border is secure. There's several different aspects.
Well, that's more than one. Okay, well, let's go to Don for his. That's okay, Michelle. You're going to go through the whole list, and then Staysha was going to have none to talk about. Okay, Don, what's your favorite one? I know Don knows some good talking points. Those
we're
Republicans.
The party of family values.
Well, that's a good one.
Oh, my God, give me a break.
All right.
The party, I get one more, party of law and order. Give me a freaking break.
Okay, well, you're going to do two. Y'all are jumping all over this show. I'm loving it. Okay, Staysha, now that you're getting into the kind of the vibe of our show, what are your talking points that you'd like to talk about?
Well, like everybody, I probably have a list, and I actually wrote down, like, for each side, my top 7 or 8. But I think, like, probably on the right is like the America First policy. Okay. It's like that drives me absolutely up a wall. And on the left, it's the climate change. It's
Okay.
all things climate crisis. Yeah,
Climate crisis. That
And,
was one.
so those are my top two.
Got it. Okay, well, let's go to Staysha. You're new to the thing. Let's talk about that. Why is this climate crisis even a talking point? Now, by the way, we're going to be talking about more subjects than we ever had on any show. So we're just going to kind of stick with the fact that what does each person think a little bit, and we're just going to have to move on because we could take the whole time talking about it. So what do you see? Why do you see that climate crisis as a talking point?
Well, a couple of reasons, and one of the things that I kind of clarify is that I don't think talking points themselves are bad. I think that the talking point is, and it's a good tool to have. It's like you want to make sure people are on the same page, that, the folks on your team are talking about the same thing. I got that. But it's when you take those things and attach the buzzwords that are designed to do nothing but either scare or hype or infuriate or anger. So, for example, with climate crisis, it's like, this is it's like, yes, it really exists. There is such a thing as, a changing climate. The science is absolutely there, but everything can't be a constant mode of crisis. It can't be constant. And it is a global problem that is so complex and so complicated that the idea that it's like, if we're just going to get rid of some plastic straws and we're going to stop doing something with, that all the responsibility is placed on the shoulder of, Johnny Homemaker, who is just trying to cook dinner, and the problem is they bought something in a plastic container. It's like,
got it.
Down.
Yeah, they should feel pretty guilty about that. Anybody else want to weigh in on why that one maybe is a talking point that maybe isn't real or isn't I don't know, true to its full amount? Ted, I know you're wanting to say something.
Well, I think that climate crisis is a crisis because it gets to a point where if the water starts boiling to the point where you can't stop the water boiling, and then really serious things happen. And already the trend is that the droughts are longer, the temperature's hotter, the water's hotter. You see it alone in Staysha. You see it in Florida with more hurricanes of greater intensity. We see it with longer wildfire seasons and different wind conditions. So
I'm not saying
though, but here's the thing. I'm not saying that none of those things exist. And those are, and I do live in Florida, watch it over and over again. But the important thing about it is the word crisis. A crisis is your house is on fire now. Something urgent and important is that your house could catch on fire, is in a fire area. This is probably coming. This is going to happen. We need to take steps and we need to take action.
So I think it's called a tipping point, Staysha.
Tipping
When
point
you get to a point where
and
it start going downhill, you can't stop it from going downhill. I think that's why they call it a crisis now.
But then again,
throwing your own body in front of a steamroller is not the way to solve that particular tipping point.
Okay. So we're going to this again. I knew doing this show was going to be interesting, but I think your point, Staysha, that you're saying is that we're calling it this crisis, and as some people will say, I'll start treating it like a crisis when everybody treats it like a crisis and doesn't run around, in 52 jets getting to some environmental change crisis or whatever. So there are points to be made on each side of that. Don, what was one of the talking points you thought that and clearly you're thinking it's something that Republicans are misusing, but what is the Republican talking point you hate?
Well, the Republican hates is the family values.
Okay,
and the
let's talk family values then. Michelle, why? Why do you see
values,
that?
And they're constantly misinterpreting it or not even following it because they're putting people in office that have problems.
You're saying that have personal lives that are not
personalized problems, and putting leaders and saying that people are you got certain people that's already been proven in courts and everything else, and you're still saying that you're a party of family values, and you put leaders and stuff that has big problems.
Okay,
the president accused of sexual harassment. Yeah.
Okay,
Well, you're trying to sit there, on these particular sound points, though. I mean, you're just trying to sit there, and I think with regards to the media, and then it's just marketing. It's trying to do marketing onto your own personal ideology. It's not necessarily looking at the truth. They're trying to, decipher on what you personally identify with, and they're targeting that and trying to evoke an emotion out of you. And, trying to create a situation to where, yes, you're going to create, you're going to agree because they are playing on your emotions. They might not necessarily be playing on facts, they're playing on emotions. And
that's the name of the game.
So you're saying just because a politician sleeps around, they can't talk about family values? Is that what you're thinking?
Makes them look hypocritical, that's for sure.
Yeah, it does. Boy, those politicians, we'd all agree they're hypocritical, aren't they?
A lot
A
of
lot of them are, yes.
Yeah,
A lot of them
and
are
then
on
the
both
other part
sides.
is the on the Democratic side is the part that we're part of labor and stuff like that. But you're constantly saying that, or are you for poor people? But a lot of history of the Democrats, they still vote for capitalism at the highest still. So if you were just straight for poor people, you'll do everything. But
Okay.
But that's gone away than it used to be back in the day. That was actually for labor and poor people, but now it's kind of gotten away because corporate greed has kicked into everybody.
Yeah, well, I
So,
think.
Bob,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, I was
I was
just
gonna say,
saying.
Bob, go ahead. Sorry.
Nope, you're going, Ted.
So I think that what this speaks about is today's environment with so many sources of information from so many different places, from podcasts, the internet, to all the news issues, is there's so much noise out there. And these talking points become heavily marketed, heavily researched, and then tested and become main pushing points. And it's mainly just to break through the noise. Meanwhile, people, as you said earlier, we're so busy trying to care about our kids or get a job or keep a job or worry about our health issues, whatever the case may be. This stuff has to break through every once in a while and stick.
Yeah.
And one thing that broke through and stuck 18 months ago was the fact that eggs cost $4 or $5 a six pack, and people said inflation is bad. And they could say two things. Inflation is bad. Oh, there's the price. You're right. And it stuck.
Yep.
Right. But and then, of course, you found. Well, but you later found out that apparently because of the bird flu or whatever that stupid flu is, they killed millions and millions of chickens. That's why the egg. It's a supply and demand issue. And yet I think both parties have actually tried to claim the egg prices as being bad. For Democrats are bad for Republicans. They both do it. Staysha, why don't you jump in now?
That goes back to the point that I was making a minute ago about like the tool is the tool. It's like, and using the words that keep them sticky, that make sure that people are they're signaling to the people who already agree with them. Yeah. Whether it's, oh my gosh, everything's in an economic crisis. Oh my gosh, the sky is falling. It's absolutely horrible. Which again, that is a Republican talking point on the economic crisis. And then there's the, let's pick a different one. Can't think of one right now, but the idea that it's like
the immigrant one.
The words that are used.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The words that are used are intended to be like, but at the same time, it's not just that we have all of these additional outlets. It's that these additional outlets are able to coordinate and they hit the same people over and over and over and over, convincing everybody that the world agrees with them. And so as things have gotten smaller and smaller with their circle of influence, you have to make so much effort to just go and find out extra information. And who's got that kind of time? I mean, I do because I wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning every night and I get on my phone and I try and look at my sources. But most people don't do that.
I know it. Well, actually, Ted is in your same profession, actually. So he's a writer also. And so he always has an opinion about something, Staysha. You'll enjoy this relationship down the road. What about this one? Okay, I got one. I'm going to throw out a talking point, and y'all tell me what the truth and the falsity of it. Democrats want open borders and no laws.
False.
Okay, why? Why is it false?
Because there's the borders come in, they're not open. The people are captured and processed, but they're not open.
No, but we're telling you that you want open borders. You must want open borders.
That's what you hear.
That's a bunch of BS, man.
I know it is, but haven't you heard it?
Yeah.
But that's a talking point crossing into a big lie. I mean, it's like that one is not, and I think that's an important bit of it. It's like no one wants, and this is where I think where the Democrats had a tendency to fall down over and over again, was because they kept swearing for the longest time. It's like, oh my gosh, there's not really a problem. We don't have a crisis on the southern border. We don't have an immigration problem. We don't have an illegal immigrant. They kept saying this constantly to the point where people are going, but it looks really bad. This looks pretty bad, right? And so you get that idea where once that branding, I think, Shell, you were saying this, once that branding starts to stick, you can't get it off of you.
No, absolutely you can't. And I mean, and that's a narrative that people want to sit there and hear, and you know what I mean? That's what they resonate with, and that's what they're going to agree with, and that's where the party lines where they're going to align their vote with. Well, and it's not necessarily what's the truth, it's what they're playing on in your emotion. It's not, necessarily going to be factual.
Excellent.
That's what you're saying.
All right, well, we've got to take our first. Hey, Donnie,
Go
we
take
got
a
to
break.
take our first break, and we'll start on you after the first segment. We've got to have a message from our sponsors. And again, of course, make sure subscribe on Facebook. Go on thirdsideconvo.com, and we'll see you right back after a word from our sponsors.
Corona Cigar Company is your one-stop shop for all your cigar needs. Whether that's a brand new humidor, a box of those new cigars you've been waiting for, a top-of-the-line cutter or lighter, a place to enjoy the finest cigars and spirits with friends, or the only cigars grown right here in the Sunshine State, we've got you covered. Come visit one of our retail locations for the ultimate cigar experience. Visit us online at coronacigar.com.
Oak Ridge Gun Range is a family-oriented shooting range that has been in business for over 30 years. They specialize in basic firearm training and offer numerous services such as consignments, gun trades, gunsmithing, and concealed weapon classes. I even got my training for gun safety at Oak Ridge Gun Range. Great customer service, and firearm safety is what they do best. So find out more at oakridgegunrange.com.
All right, we're back. So why do they talking points stick? Why do people keep repeating them? We've kind of talked about it a little bit. And I think what we find is that there's truth probably in every talking point. And I also like to think the ones I'm talking about have something that's wrong in there. So that's kind of what I want to focus on here and so we may need both sides to jump in to find the pluses and the minuses of these things. Don, so you got your next talking point to talk about?
Yeah, the other one is that we're the party of law and order, and the talking point going back to the immigrant thing is when people say this, the immigrants should be arrested because they broke federal law. They should be held accountable. But on the other side, people break federal law. For example, the Jan 6 people broke all the laws, and I always go to this. If you didn't go through the search procedure in the government building up to 10 years, you are subject to go to prison. For 10 years, federal law.
We're back on that, Don, and Don, and also people.
If an immigrant breaks the law or don't have his papers, which is a civil case, it's not a federal law. They want to be held to accountable, put them in prison, throw them away.
Okay, well, let's go back to your original talking point as opposed to taking it in parts. Michelle or Staysha, do you want to say why is that totally true? So what'd you say? Oh, the Republicans are law and order. They want to hold themselves as law and order. Okay, problems with that on the right. What do y'all think?
Problems with that one. There are a gazillion problems with that one. A number, and again, because of that particular talking point, it is created to scare the crap out of people. I mean, and now as an old conservative, old person that thought I understood what law and order meant, was that you basically held people accountable, as Don was saying, for if they broke a crime, that they committed a crime, and we could recognize the difference between criminal and civil. We thought we had that, I think. This new approach to the law and order is that it's the crimes that bother us. I mean, when was the last time a white collar criminal went to jail? And this isn't a recent phenomenon. I mean, this happened underneath, what was it? The Enron debacle? Did anybody go to jail for that? Yeah. What about the Great Recession? What about all the bankers? Nobody spent a day in jail. So we really redefined what law and order means to where it is meaningless. And I think that is basically, it means people who are committing something. The purpose of it is to scare the crap out of people.
So you're actually agreeing with Don. That one is kind of a bogus talking point because it's not kept. It's not always, like you said, the right law and order, right, is what you're saying. Okay, good.
The right.
Okay, what about this one? Okay, I got another one. Republicans want to suppress the vote. Hey, Don, Ted. What do you think about that one? What's the positive and negative with Republicans want to suppress the vote? Because that kind of relates to the immigrant thing, doesn't it? Well, they don't want all those
illegal immigrants. They're running to create that it's an irregularity. So people are not going to go out and vote at all. I mean, that's the premise though behind that. And again, it's just a particular scare tactic. My question though, and what I would like to be able to sit there and try to get to is, how do we sit there and disseminate information not based upon our personal fears, wants, or ideology, but how do we relate it to our personal lives and what's the truth? And what is the truth that's going to sit there and affect our lives?
Right.
And that's what
voter suppression does.
Pardon?
Voter suppression does. Gerrymandering, and all that stuff is voter suppression. Is that the majority of people that does it is on the Republican side, and in the history,
Democrats do it too. Democrats.
I mean,
No,
I
they
know
both
they do it, but I know they both do it. But the perception is,
recognizing
I'm
that
going
it
on
goes
the
on
thing.
both sides.
But the perception, what Bob's saying, the perception is that Republicans do it, both sides do it. But voter suppression has been around for eons, due back to the Jim Crow laws where they had to count the jelly beans in the jar.
Well, that was different, right? Yep. Okay,
Historically,
so
the
there's
GOP doesn't have a
pluses
good
and minuses to that suppression then. Okay. Fair enough. Who's got another one?
Crime is only in Democratic states.
Or cities and the cities.
Yeah, exactly.
Liberal mayors in California lead to crime sprees like, never mind if that's organized crime taking effect. Just like the organized crime had taken over. They charged 7 people from South America for breaking into the athlete's home. It's organized crime. Same with the gangs breaking into Apple stores in San Francisco and Palo Alto was all organized crime.
Well, we're thankful that they.
It's not necessarily deciphered on any particular states, though. I mean, actually, there is certain crimes that are higher in particular states than others. I mean, there might be more violent crimes in some, and then there is more drug activities in other ones. So I think that it kind of deciphers on what cities that you're looking at. That takes into account the population's geographics, the economics, and the social programs that are going to be there.
Yeah,
and
but the great right-wing media is easy to make the 1-2. Oh, crime in San Francisco, broken Apple stores, boom, liberal mayor, boom, that's why.
Oh, it's nice and visual. Okay, Staysha, jump in. Staysha.
This is also one that has an answer, right? I mean, you can actually go and look at crime statistics. We keep those records. We know we have information. So you can actually look at that. That's actually one of the easier ones, whatever side you're on, to sit there and say, it's like, okay, well, let me go look it up. That one's easy. And then you can sit there and say, okay, crime is up. And then the question of the why, where are you going to land that blame? And that's where the buzzwords come in. That's where the talking points take that really sinister turn, where it's like, okay, what we're trying to do with this particular buzzword about crime in big cities is that's not about crime in big cities. That's about getting people to be afraid of big cities and be afraid of inner city voters and be afraid of things like liberal voters. That's what that is about, or being afraid of immigrants and migrants for one.
Well, also, great, but also crime has been it's on a racial bias too, because if you look at the statistics in the world, in the United States, 38% of the people incarcerated are Black people and only make up 14% of the population. Right. Here in Florida, it's like 48% when they make up 17% of the population. Right. And 40% of the people here in Florida are Black people in jail. So it's a different conversation or a different spread out.
Yeah, that's a longer conversation there, I think, on that, Don. One of these days we'll have to do it.
It's a longer conversation, but crime is so.
Okay, I got another fun one. What about Republicans are trying to ban books? And we're going to do this one, then we're going to go to our break. So what does everybody think about, what are the truths and falsities of that one?
They don't want certain people, especially associated with the right-wing Christian groups, don't want their kids learning about such things as homosexuality or gender issues, or for that matter, anything that would be involved in, that happens in the natural world. They want to protect them and shield them and not let them get damaged by such dangerous information.
Wow. You're right. Now, Staysha, go.
The things that I don't agree with, though, on the Republican side is being able to sit there and to have a certain form of censorship. It is, listen, all of us, we're all of at a certain age to where we had the ability and the capabilities to read and look at whatever it is that we wanted to look, and, overall, we all came out perfectly fine. But to be able to sit and have a particular, a party to decipher on what I will deem that's going to be acceptable for you and what's not going to be acceptable for you, I think that it's completely, it's out of touch and it's inappropriate.
I think this is one where I think that the criticisms of it being primarily on the right are absolutely 100%, because the book and the way where they're banning them, it's like the bannings are not taking place down at the public library. They're taking place in the school libraries, and the school libraries are taking place and especially here in Florida, where we have these the way they request, to say, okay, we want this book gone. If in one county, I think it was was it Clay County? It was like one person filing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these.
One person. That was right. One person.
Right, but so the point is, like, is there people who are trying to control what children read? Yes, there have always been people trying to control what children read. Right now, one certain side, and not even the Republican side, is a Christian, conservative, nationalist, natalist or group, is trying to control that. And I think because they are such a strong right now voting block for that thing, that is where that's the carrot that's being given to that group. It's like, yeah, oh, absolutely. And by being able to make it something that's about the children, as soon as any talking point becomes about the children, whether it's gun safety or drugs or whatever, all of a sudden it is nothing but emotions and wrong.
I love it. Exactly. All right. Well, we're ready for our next break. So I guess Republicans don't want to ban all books. That's good to know. We'll have to remember that. Not all of them. Not all of them. Okay. So please subscribe on the Third Side, the thirdsideconvo.com, on Facebook, and please check us out. I mean, we're having fun, as you can see, and we're trying to make a difference. So we'll be right back after this word from our sponsor.
Aw, Dad, my computer's slow again and I can't play my games.
Call Your Computer Solutions today, and we will scan for viruses and clean that computer up remotely and make it fast again. Our phone number is 407-826-0810.
Thanks, Dad. My computer's fast again. Now I can do my homework. Thanks for calling Your Computer Solutions at 407-826-0810. The Tri-Beer Show would like to thank Boggy Creek Airboat Adventures for being one of our sponsors. I got to go on an airboat and saw a real gator. I even got to go to the gem mine and mine for some gems. We ate a steak dinner at the restaurant and even got some gator bites. If you want to have a blast with the entire family, I suggest you go to www.bcairboats.com right now. Get your tickets today. The website again is bcairboats.com.
All right, we're back. And, we've actually torn some of them apart. I'm actually pleased. I didn't know how many of these we were going to get through. Can we actually move forward, though, actually understanding how they're being used? We talked about that. Because at the end of the day, both sides contribute to the noise. And today I want to thank everyone for admitting that. Because that's the real win. Not just calling out the other side, but recognizing where our own side plays the game, too. So what do we do with that knowledge, And that's up to us. But the next time that you hear a talking point that sounds a little too perfect, maybe stop and ask, what's the other half of the story? All right? So let's go on and let's, we don't have to get into specific ones, but what's everybody's view of talking points now? Are you willing to actually look at them and say the thing's not all true? I mean, I know that everybody on this show is starting to be that. Ted is. I mean, you sent me this wonderful email talking about this show, saying that, a lot of the talking points have pluses and minuses, don't they?
Yeah. I think right now, especially after what's gone through, I think there's so much more intense interest in certain things. And after the election, I'm pretty much on sabbatical. But back to your point, I actually blame the individual people. I actually blame the populace of the United States because, again, as Staysha says, people don't have time to pay attention. And if we did pay attention and had a little more knowledge, we would not be having things like people voting on point blank issues of, yes, child pornography is bad. Of course, child pornography is bad. Who is for child pornography? Who's for crime? Who is for, all these other things? So the point is, there's no real mix of ideas. It just tends to be a point blank statement comes across, and it has to be yes or no.
I would jump in if I can. The thing that I would add on to that is that it's not just about that people don't have time, is that they've lost the critical thinking aspect of it, and being able to sit there and say, it's like, okay, I just reacted really strongly to something. There's a reason why. None of this is by accident anymore. And I think somebody mentioned it earlier that, these talking points and the buzzwords that are used around them, these things are tested and thought out. You are the target. As soon as you recognize that you're a target of something, even whether it's from your own side, you have to question it. But I think a lot of folks have either lost that ability or they never had it. I don't know.
To follow up, Staysha, real quick, George Will said like 25 years ago, George Will, the famous right-wing commentator, said, we're a fat, sassy nation. All we really care about is no taxes, free guns, NASCAR, and where do we want to eat? That's all we really care about. And that's it. And we don't want to be bothered by anything else. Oh, the world's going to hell. Well, whose problem is that? What are we going to do about food? You don't really know. So there you go.
Yeah, but also there's another side that we didn't look at. God bless his heart, Steve Bannon. I don't like to say too much about him, but he has his philosophy is flood. Oh, did I say he's not a
Well,
politician?
Yeah, okay.
Going.
Yeah,
Dan,
keep
it's
going.
He's
okay.
not
That
a
was over.
politician. All right, but anyway, he's not even hired. But anyway, his
Dale?
philosophy, and it's not bad or good, but his philosophy is to flood the zone with a whole bunch of stuff so to get people distracted
Yeah.
with talking points, and he uses talking points as distractions. Flood the zone, and people can't keep up. The media can't keep up like that. Keep saying stuff.
And I know
They're-
what
they're
you're saying,
constantly on
Don,
the
is
thing.
that people do it on both sides, that they're
On both
constantly
sides,
doing it
exactly.
on both
On both
sides.
sides.
I'm just saying, Steve Bannon, he's saying the strategy, and they use it,
Yeah,
but he uses to flood the zone
Yeah.
with
Actually-
talking points. The more talking points you
Don,
have,
that's
Who
okay.
is the
Don, I just-
person on the left doing this?
When can we come back to the old school, you know what I mean, way back in the day where it was actually real true journalism? You know what I mean? Where we're actually, keeping out of
I mean, when that came apart, that's what changed that.
Yeah, I'm like, when
What's
did
that?
that
The
come back
internet?
into play?
Now, the fairness doctrine, that was when that changed.
Oh, that's true.
I mean,
Yeah.
so we can actually look at a specific date to see when wheels really started coming off, and that was an kind of a date you can point at and see where things started going off the rails. But to that
That's
point
a
about
great show.
playing the zone, it's like money. What does that mean?
It means good.
Okay.
You were good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But who on the left is like, I would say it's like that whole idea of like flooding the zone. Where is the ninja on the left who's doing that? I mean, I'm not seeing that. If there was somebody and they're doing it because it's effective. People on the right who are doing this, they're doing it because it works. They're doing it because it's delivering what they want.
Right.
If there is somebody, I mean, I would love it if we were all better people, but we're not apparently. And so if we're going to win, if people are going to win elections based upon these values that they hold true, then we got to get in the game, right?
All right.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Bob,
This
I'm
was.
gonna back on one last-
Well,
What?
now
Okay.
we've actually got to end this show. You're going to have to say it in the after show if you hang around just a little bit. So please subscribe on Facebook. As you can see, we're just regular people talking about things, but trying to get together, because that really is all it takes. I mean, you got to keep questioning things. Let's keep the conversation going, and we will see you next week on Third Side Convo.